Welcome back to Wizard Supercoach. I think I'm getting sick, so you'll probably be able to hear that in my voice in this video, but I will push on, so hopefully you can all put up with it. Things are definitely starting to get more interesting now, I think, in terms of Supercoach, with the practice games starting. It's a real pity that there was none today when you're stuck at home, but yeah, what can you do? So, last preview, I covered Fremantle, and they're one of the most relevant Supercoach teams, I guess, and this video I'll be covering one of the least relevant teams, and I really like Geelong, but it's their style and probably more so Chris Scott's that just doesn't translate to Supercoach nicely at all. Despite that though, they finished third last year, and I suspect they might have overachieved a bit, although it's hard to tell given their system over personnel approach. Like, you can never really just look at their list and say, oh, they're going to finish here or there or whatever. Yeah, I think they'll be top 8 again this year, but I'm not game to try and narrow it down any further than that. It's kind of impossible, and I wouldn't dare tip them for anything less, given every time it looks like they're finally going to drop off, they just bounce right back. It's been nearly 20 years of that now, which is incredible. I've actually tried to nail a probable best 22 here without question marks, so apologies to Geelong fans and anyone out there if I got it badly wrong, but yeah, I've given it a stab. It can be hard if you're not a supporter of that team. I've left Cam Guthrie out because he just can't seem to get his body right at all, so, you know, if he does get fit, he probably will be in there, but it doesn't look like it's happening anytime soon. Apart from Smith in the midfield, I can't really see too many changes coming with this lineup. Like, there's Martin, he could push for a forward spot, but they're pretty strong in that area, so I think he's going to have to rely on injuries at this point, or a massive drop in form from one of those small forwards. Sam De Koning, he looks like he'll be the ruck at least to start the season, so I think that's instantly put him in contention as a starting pick in terms of Supercoach. And Blitzarves, he's rumoured to be returning to defence, so I've put him at centre-half back for now. He may not actually play there, I don't know. But the reason I do these teams and try and see how they're going to look, it's looking for opportunity for where, you know, well, job security for anyone, but mostly where rookies might be able to break in and then keep their spot. Probably should say as well, Duncan might be a bit of an iffy one with that last spot on the bench, but, you know, if he stays fit, I think he's still got something to offer, and he's certainly got the runs on the board. As for the depth players, what stands out here, it's a little bit like Essendon with the lack of key forwards, and they've got a ton of rucks, which you wouldn't really expect. It's a bit of a worry if Neil or Cameron go down, like, who are they going to turn to as a key forward? So it looks pretty balanced other than that. There's a fair bit of experience there, but I guess you'd expect that from a Geelong team at this point. I'm really hoping that Nevitt gets a go, but after looking at this, I just can't really see where he's going to fit in just yet. So yeah, there's not a hell of a lot to look at. I'll move on to the CBAs and kick-ins. And not really surprisingly, Geelong had the largest CBA spread of any team last year, which it's one of the reasons why they're not a Supercoach friendly team at all. So just looking at this, Parfitt, he's the third man, he's gone, so you'd think that Baz Lenker should get like this whole 55% and maybe more, I don't know, maybe less. And I said before that Blitzarves is said to be returning to defence, so that leaves, like, you know, his CBAs on offer, but Holmes possibly could gain them, I'm not sure. There's also every chance that Stewart now stays in defence, and I think most likely they'll just use him like break glass in case of emergency type midfielder. But yeah, with this here, like, and if Stewart's not in there, is this maybe where Nevitt can find a way in? Maybe I'm just being hopeful, I don't know, because we're a bit desperate for rookies, I think. Maybe though, yeah, we'll see him go down to 7 mids instead of 9. Who knows, to be honest. Chris Scott, he does seem to like the players who can play all over the place, so I guess that's not really a good sign for Nevitt either. I don't think there's much to see here in terms of Supercoach, really. The most interesting part of the whole thing is how much of that pie Smith is going to get, but I'll get to him later in the video. I don't think the kick-ins look like changing too much either. If Duncan's still in the team, well, he might get some, but hopefully Humphreys can increase his amount. He started to get a few end of last year. So, yeah, overall, I'd expect Stewart to keep the majority, though. And, yeah, there's not much to say on this page, but as I just mentioned, Stewart, let's have a look at him. So he's going to be 32 next month, and the thought for a while was that because he started late, his body hadn't copped the smashing that others had from playing at, 18 or whatever they get drafted. So I think he was about 23 when he came into the comp, and, you know, after owning him last year, and I had to watch him pretty closely, I think that is starting to come to an end. Like, he seems to cop a knock or get some issue quite a lot now, most games. And he, to his credit, he still plays through most of it, but it does seem to hurt his scoring. Yeah, he also rarely plays a full season, as you can see here. And given you'd be picking him as a keeper at this price, that's not really ideal. That said, though, he's a pretty special player, so I think that alone can bypass a few of these issues. I'm not going to bother going through all his stats here because, in my opinion, he has to be split into two. So, from last year, there's Stewart the defender and Stewart the midfielder. I unfortunately owned the defender, and as you can see from his pre-buy average of 95.2 when he was playing purely defence, he was pretty underwhelming for the price, and he just cops a lot of tags in defence, and he loves to start hot and then disappear in the last quarter for some reason. That was driving me up the wall. So, you know, after a few bad games in a row, I finally had enough, and once he got to his buy, I traded him out. And then, wouldn't you know it, as soon as I did that, or I think it was the week after he come back from the buy, he became Stewart the midfielder and starts averaging 109. So, yeah, just magical that was. So, yeah, for me, it's a pretty clear-cut choice. So if you think he's going to continue to split his time between mid and defence, then he does look to be a good pick. If he's going to go back to defence with little to no mid time, then it's probably another 90 to 100 average, and I wouldn't be picking him in that case. He's also got Humphreys to contend with, and he looks great in that rebounding half-back role, so, you know, he's going to take points off Stewart. Stewart used to have the monopoly on it, and I don't think he does anymore. If anyone's got reasons why you think he will return to his previous scoring if he's even in that purely defensive role, then I'd love to hear it, but I'm just struggling to find any reasons that he will, given his age. As I said, I know he's a special player and stuff, but, you know, time does get everyone. Think of Gary Ablett at the end of his career. So, really, to sum it up, it's midfield Stewart is a pick, and defence Stewart is not a pick. I think I can't really say anything other than that. Here's the man I just mentioned, and I reckon this kid should be talked about a hell of a lot more in terms of Supercoach. Like, he's got the role, and he's had really good scoring ability, I think, for a first-year player. There's a lot of people that are hot on McKercher, and he wasn't too far ahead in terms of scoring. Like, if you look at both of their adjusted averages, McKercher was only 7 points higher. But, you know, Humphreys doesn't seem to have the role instability that McKercher does. Like, it looks like McKercher's going to go up the field now, like wing, half forward, maybe that kind of role. And I don't know if he can score in that role, but, you know, the uncertainty, it's not good. We don't like that in a starting pick. And, I mean, there's McKercher's 60k more expensive for obvious reasons. He outscored him. But, yeah, to me, I feel like if you're going to be looking at McKercher and talking about him, then Humphreys should be right there too. So there's obviously not a lot of data to go on here. He only played the 9 games. He made his debut in round 16 and he scored a 91, so that was awesome. Then he played every game after that, and he even scored 125 against Brisbane in the prelim. So, you know, that's not easy to do. He did have 3 games in the 60s, and that's his floor scores, obviously, but, you know, that's to be expected in first year. I can see that improving this year, especially since his teammates I reckon they'll have more confidence in him and feed him a bit more ball as well. So yeah, we'll see that floor probably raise. He does seem to score better in the losses here, which is interesting given when I did that video, most of the half-backs are the opposite. Like, I think over 3/4 of them. So yeah, he does play for Geelong though, so I guess, you know, nothing's really surprising with their players. The points per disposal, that's really good, 4.5, and Just for reference, that's level with Stewart, and it puts him at about 7th overall for all the Supercoach relevant defenders. So that's really good for a 9-game player. The points per minute is decent as well, and this Tog's definitely got some room to grow. So yeah, we like to see that. His adjusted average too, I mentioned that before, 87, so that's pretty damn good. Like, he got subbed out, injured or something. He only played like 1 quarter in the final round, so that dragged him down to the 77 here. But yeah, this is more like what his true average is. So yeah, he's just, I don't understand why he's not being talked about. Anyway, so as I mentioned before, like, there's not a huge amount to go on stats wise, but yeah, he's really flying under the radar for so many people. I'm pretty interested in this pick, to be honest. It just depends how much value like you see in it. If we go by the old 150k rule, he needs to average about 105 to make 150k at this price. And I don't think he'll do that, but I can easily see him getting up over 90. So, you know, it's cheap points on field. I don't know, it's up to the individual, but I can see the merit in it depending on your strategy. It's just, how much do you want to play the money game or the points on field game? You know, everyone's about the money, and I get that. You've got to have the money makers, but I think people sometimes forget that you've got to have the points on field as well. It's got to be a balance there. One thing I will say though, probably against this pick, it's probably hard to take that risk with him when Matt Roberts is only a little bit more expensive. And, you know, like I mentioned earlier with McKercher though, Roberts' role security I don't think is quite as sure as Humphries. So we think that Cox will play him in that half-back role, but really, who knows? So, yeah, whether Humphries is a pick or not, he surely deserves to be in the conversation a bit more than he currently is. Like, I really don't hear anyone talking about him, which is crazy, really. So, yeah, let me know what you think of this one in the comments, because in my opinion, it's one of the most interesting, certainly at Geelong. Next up is SDK, and this he's in the same scenario as Stewart for me. So we've got SDK the defender and SDK the ruck. So the defender's not a pick at all, but, you know, the ruck certainly could be. Most of the numbers shown here, they're in relation to he's played the majority in defence, but there was a 5-week window last year between rounds 15 and 19 where he was first ruck, and he averaged 95 in that time. And this is purely what would be basing the pick on. So the word out of Geelong does look like they're going to be starting him in the ruck, given Conway's injured and, well, Stanley's just ancient now. So, you know, like I applied to Humphries, if we go with the old 150k rule, he needs to average 94 to make that. And it looks like he can do it because, you know, what did he do? The 95 in the role last year. So he's just got to hold on to the role long enough to make the money, I guess. His durability, I think it does look a little rocky, but, you know, there is one minor hamstring issue here, but there's really not much soft tissue injury stuff going on, so it's not too bad. Yeah, whilst he did have a couple of spike games in that rucking period, he's also had a couple of floor games, so a 64 and a 58. Hopefully he can lift up that floor because, you know, if you're looking at him as the moneymaker, games like that, they're going to slow his money making down big time. So, you know, he's clearly not a keeper, so you'd want him to be making the money, I guess. But really, who knows? Like, I doubt anyone expected his brother to explode last year, so maybe he could be a keeper. Like, I know it's a massive long shot, but yeah, don't really deal in absolutes. If you're a Star Wars fan, you'll get that one, but yeah. So like Stewart, I guess, yeah, there's not a lot to discuss in terms of numbers here. It's just whether he has that job security as first ruck or not. So yeah, like Stewart, it's pretty simple. It's a choice of if he's going to be a defender or a ruck. This guy's numbers are a bit more interesting though, at least. So his scoring and durability, they show a nice linear progression here. Like the average is going up, the games missed are getting smaller. His win versus loss is it's close enough that it's not really relevant at all, which is pretty good, I think, given Geelong, they're so hard to predict wins-wise for the next year, or any year really, lately. So, yeah, it's a good sign. It shouldn't really affect him one way or the other. Points per disposal, it's all right, but it could be better, I guess. Like 4, it's right on the borderline of where I look. That may improve with a bit more contested ball on the inside, though, if he is to get more mid-time. Nice points per minute, and he's possibly still got some more growth to come with the TOG, so again, that's a nice combo. But this here, the pre-verse post-buy, the average, this is where it gets the most interesting for me. So for most of this pre-buy, he was playing that half-back role, but in round 10, he started to get decent CBAs. So this mostly continued post-buy, but there were still some games when he returned to almost purely half-back. The reason why I find this interesting is because the thought around him seems to be that he should improve his scoring with more mid-time. But then why does his post-buy average drop by 10 points when he was playing more mid than half-back in the second half of the year? So first half of the year, his lowest score was an 84, and he had 16% CBAs in that game. So pretty good floor, but he was playing mostly half-back in that game. Then post-buy, he's had 3 floor games of 69 at 60% CBAs, 71 with 50% CBAs, and a 73 with 47% CBAs. He wasn't tagged in those games either. So there's just something there that doesn't add up for me. Like, yeah, the post-buy drop here and the increased mid-time overall. So I don't know where the thought comes from that he's going to score better with more inside, like, CBAs and that. His CBA brackets are all over the place as well, if you have a look over here. And I think the CBA win and loss thing is a bit skewed because the Cats barely lost in the pre-buy, and that was when he was still mostly at half-back. So does this mean that are they possibly a better team with him on the outside rather than the inside? I don't even know. I can't even answer that. But the uncertainty of all that, it's put me off the pick. Like, I had him in my early team, and he was in and out for a little while, but I haven't had him in the team for quite a few weeks now. So yeah, it's definitely enough to put me off. I don't know why people think it's a sure thing that getting more CBAs is gonna increase the scoring, because from what I can see here, it's almost the opposite. So am I missing something here? Like, let me know in the comments what you think, but I can't work it out. Maybe it's just because I'm getting sick and like it's probably something really obvious right in front of me. But yeah, let me know, because I honestly can't see it. So obviously I was always going to get to Baslenka, and I'll start by saying that I covered a lot on him in one of the first videos I did this year. If you want to go back and watch it, I think it was called something like A Unique Opportunity in the Forward Line or something like that. So if you want more on Baslenka, go have a look at that one. There's stuff that isn't in this video, but yeah. You'll also find in that video pretty quickly that I was making the case for anti-potting him, and he's still not on my team. Like, I'm holding firm with that one. I will admit, though, that with people's forward lines becoming more diverse since I put that video out, it's made it a lot riskier to anti-pod him. So, at that stage, it was every team looked like it was Horne-Francis, McRae, Smith, Philippou, Daniel, and Hewitt, but not anymore. Like, Philippou, we know he's out of contention now, and people are seeming to fade either one of like Horne-Francis, McRae, Smith. Yeah, the only one that looks like a constant for everyone is Daniel, so I'm surprised he's not 100% owned. So Baz has been pretty durable in his time, and when I was researching why he'd miss games, something stood out to me, and that was the multiple illness games over the last few years. And it made me think that they might have just been a cover-up for, his love of bags, really. He got done for that. And I'm not really going to talk about that too much, but, it's not Supercoach relevant, really, but it is interesting all the same. So, yeah, just a bit of hindsight there. It stood out. Obviously, all the numbers here, they're based on 2023. because unless you've been living under a rock, he did miss last year with an ACL. So this here, the win-loss average, that's a bit of a worry. Just given how hard Geelong is to predict. Like I said, I wouldn't rule them out or anything, but based on this, you'd want to be hoping for top 4 again. And I get, like, you know, it looked like a bit of a down year for him, but yeah. The pre versus post bye, it's pretty much the same. And this is, I think, can be explained by a loss of CBAs in the second half of the year. Now, I don't want to go back to it again, but I will. Just looking at that illness thing again, I couldn't help but think this. I wonder if after that, the illness game that he missed, and he's lost the CBAs in the second half of the year, and then he's wanted to leave and stuff, maybe Bevo come down hard on him over the drug stuff if he did slip up again. Like, he got suspended for it in 2022, and then, you know, he's had the illness game in 23. I could be wrong, but yeah, I don't know. I'm not trying to be slanderous or anything like that. Like, I'm not about that, but it all looks a bit coincidental, and I'm struggling to see why he suddenly dropped off in scoring and CBAs in the second half of the year. So, you know, it could be a thing, but it's probably not. But I'll move on. The points per disposal here is terrible, really. Like, that is so low, and points per minute, that's not good either. Not for a midfielder. I know it was better in previous years and stuff, but, you know, this is the most recent that we've got to go on, and who knows what kind of player he's going to be now when he returns. The CBAs, they're all over the shop, but from looking at other years, it's pretty obvious that he scores better with more CBAs. So, you know, it's also apparent with his TOG. Like, he scores when he has massive TOG, he can hit those good scores, but he really struggles when he's got the lower TOG. He really needs both of those things to be high, and then he can score how we want. But this is one of my main concerns with him as a pick. So he's gone to Geelong, where they're already renowned for sharing CBAs, roles, game time, all that stuff. So that's not ideal in terms of Supercoach, but he's also coming off the ACL, and it's pretty likely, given that Geelong love to do it, that they manage him. And, you know, this means less game time, possible rested weeks, and being subbed out if a game is cooked off early. And, like, how annoying is that going to be? It'd pretty much kill the pick if that happens, if he's subbed out on, you know, a low score. So, well, I guess that's if you believe that he's not going to be a top 6. Anyway, all of this stuff, this is covered in more depth in that earlier video that I mentioned. So yeah, go check that out. It's got completely different info, some different categories and stuff. So I'm still anti-potting him for now, and I'm pretty confident on it, to be honest. Having said that, knowing my luck, it's probably going to backfire massively, but, you know, I hate to admit it, but I am confident on this one. That said, I can still see why people are picking him. It has been tempting at times, I'll admit, but yeah, there's too much pointing in the other direction for me, and you kind of just got to back your research in, I guess. Otherwise, what's the point? So yeah, that's about it for those players. I thought about covering Nevitt as well, but there's not much to go on, so it would have been a pretty boring stat line to look at, and I think he's got an uphill battle for job security anyway, unless there's injuries and stuff. He has got the ability to score. He scored 103 in round 12, 2023, but he was dropped straight after that game, so, you know, it shows what he's up against. And the other thing I found was the majority of his scores, they're really low, like 20s and 30s, and that's in pretty much full games, so it's not what you want to see. But we haven't really seen him get CBAs yet, and apparently he's put on a fair bit of size, so I would say the pick's not exactly dead yet, but it's probably on life support, to be honest. So that's about it for Geelong. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments. I love hearing others' opinions on this stuff, and I love the back and forth with the comments. So yeah, you guys are the reason I keep doing these, because I've said it a few times before, but they're quite time consuming, these videos. And yeah, on that note, please like and subscribe. So I'm only 12 subs away from my goal of 300 by round 0. So thanks again to those of you who've subbed, and yeah, thanks to everyone for watching today, and yeah, I'll see you in another video, hopefully tomorrow, if I don't get too sick and stuff. But yeah, I'll catch you in that one.